Good morning and welcome to In Search of Prosperity Sisterhood. I'm so glad you ladies are here today. Um, I've had this question in different forms. We've done some workshops, and I really wanted to talk to you ladies about goal setting and vision and speaking things into existence. And then also the idea of being in it when you are striving for that thing, for that idea, for that vision, for that goal, for that milestone, whatever it might be. This year, my word that I chose was amidst, to be in the middle of. And I wrote some affirmations to go with that. I had some come to me so far throughout the year. Um, one of them being, I am amidst my revival. And I reflected on this in discussion last week or the week before with you ladies, and it was the idea of being being present. So the 2 years prior to this year, my word of the year was presence. And honestly, I don't think I truly experienced it until this year. Um just going through all the things that I've been through and the processes and the learning and things like that. And so to look back on that and say, okay, what was I doing then? Right? Like what could I um what did I learn from that to where now I'm actually feeling and experiencing that? And I don't know if I have the answer for that. In our discussion, I was kind of asked, like, why do you think that is? And I think it goes back to this word, amidst, to be in the middle of, to be soaking in something, to be marinating in something, to be in flow with something where your mind and your body are connected. And I've done a recording on this just a few weeks ago on slowing your mind down so your body and mind are in alignment so you can actually physically take action and do the things that you're working towards. And so that idea of being in the middle of something, that is the idea of presence and hmm, being in it, whatever it is. One of my affirmations that I wrote down as I wrote this word as my word of the year was, I am amidst motherhood. I'm in the middle of it. I'm doing the thing. And when I go back to that and that word, it does remind me to be present because I'm in the middle of it. Like if you're on the edge of something, your attention might be divided. I'm just going with this flow, by the way. I don't have a ton of notes. Um, but when you're in the middle of something, you are present, you are there. There's no like, I can be over here, or I can be there, or I can do that, or I can do this. Mm-mm. Nope. You're just in the middle of it. And it's the one thing that you're focused on and in at that moment. So whatever that is for you, maybe there's an overarching theme to what you're in the middle of. I mentioned motherhood. I'm also in the middle of this revival of my business and my brand and what that all looks like. So maybe it's a transformation, maybe it's an up level, maybe it's a launch, maybe it's a rebrand, maybe it's one of our members has a new puppy. Like maybe that's the theme of this season for you, right? When you're in the middle of something, sometimes there's this temptation to be like drowning in it, for it to be consuming you. But what if you turned the tables and what if you were consuming it, right? What if What if you were just soaking it all up, lathering in it, marinating, I mentioned earlier, right? Yet sometimes I'm going to go back to the drowning thing. Like if we're in the middle of something, it might feel like we're drowning, barely keeping our head above water. I get this vision of like sitting on a boat in the middle of the lake and seeing, like looking out and seeing what direction you want to go or what options you have, right? You're at a crossroads or what have you. When you focus on something, that's what you get. And so when I talk about affirmations, if you write an affirmation and you don't feel it in your body and soul as a yes, then you're not focused on it. Then it's not something that you can move towards. And I'm not saying this is like a rule. I'm saying this is like it's not it's not aligned. So we can align things. We can align things with our language. I've talked about that here before. Um, we can align things by asking them to be aligned, by focusing on them, by praying about them, by writing an affirmation about them, meditating on that, creating a vision around that thing. So then when we write that affirmation, when we think about that vision, it's aligned, it's in our language, it's what we've been asking for, it's what we've created in our mind. So we can speak it into existence. When we can envision something, when we arrive at that destination, it's already built for us. It's there. All the other pieces were being put into place without our needing to do all the details. I had a conversation recently with a client of mine about resilience. And we have a lot of chaos in our world and how like all these other things can be attacking us, right? So if we are amidst, I'm going to go to the example of motherhood or even relaunching a business, right? Like, and those are kind of things that I can relate to. But we can be attacked on all sides of all these other things that could go right or could go wrong or options or ideas and all the things, right? But there's this idea of resilience. And those things are your relationships, are your rituals, traditions, routines, uh, different modalities or uh, I don't know, ways of doing things or adding layers to that. So, an example that we talked about was a personal hygiene example. And so, as we build up our resilience in that area, what is it? It's so the basics, right? Are maybe it's brush your teeth, take a shower, use soap, wash your hands, and you build from there, right? So, like, there's the basics. And then what about skincare? You can add multiple layers on skincare. It can be the cleanser and the moisturizer and the toner. I'm making some of these words up because I don't know everything about all these areas. But adding those layers of resilience, right? And so, like, for instance, with my hair care, I've been using Monet for probably a year and a half, well, 2.5 years. And so that has a couple pieces to it, right? It's not just a wash and run. It can be if I need it to be that day, or if I'm having a hard day, I can skip that. Or a really cool thing about that is like I go for 5 or 6 or 7 days without washing my hair fully, right? So, yet if I can't, let's say depression or some other exterior thing is stopping me, some other chaos is stopping me from doing that, I have the other things. I have maybe the skincare regimen or the foot bath or whatever those things are. Okay. And yet sometimes when the big storm hits, you're stripped down to the bare bones. If you took a shower and used soap that day, life is good, right? And when you layer on that resilience, everything that can or could happen or does happen, whether it's throughout the day or an external circumstance or whatever it is, those layers of resilience can be stripped away, but they can be rebuilt. When you're only doing the basics right now and in this moment, when something happens, then you have nothing. Um, my my father-in-law uses the terms two is one, one is none, right? So yes, he's probably a hoarder of sorts. but I can liken it to this layers of resilience. You can bring in your relationships as this. If you have one or two friends, two is one, one is none. When something happens and those two friends can't relate to what's going on, you don't have any friends in that pocket of your life. And that's something I can 1000% speak to is when you have layers of resilience, when you have dozens, hundreds of relationships, when something happens, someone can relate to that. So that idea of two is one, one is none, when something happens and you have 200 to pick from, someone's going to relate to that. Whether it's on the business level and you're like, hey, this weird thing happened, or I'm looking for this resource, or whatever it is, when you whether it's a situation or raising your hand, asking that question or raising that flag, someone can reach out. Someone is there. It's that layers of resilience, building that up outside of yourself. And so when you're in the middle of something and something comes at you, resilience is something you throw back at it. Does that make sense? Like it's kind of that deflector that I get that picture of a shield or something like that. Like having whether it's options I mentioned earlier, having those ideas that pop up, those layers of resilience are like, oh hey, I solved that problem over here, my friend did over there. You have options as well, like internally in your relationships, in your conversations, and what you've built for yourself. But there's things outside of you that are really cool too, like those other relationships with those other people and those other experiences that you don't have. So I keep going back to that image of like, okay, I'm on in the middle of this lake and there's so many options. And yet there needs to be a core. And there's not, maybe there is, and I haven't found it, but there's the core to me is those daily non negotiables. What are those things that keep you moving the needle? And then I want you to know they don't have to get done every day. It's nice to know, hey, I have these 6 things I want to do every day. And if I only hit 4 or 5, cool. I'm still moving the needle. That's what I want those to be for you. Those daily non-negotiables. When you're sitting there looking at all the options, no matter which one you pick, if I did 4 of these 5 or 6 things every day, I could have all of those things. That's pretty empowering. So then what are you moving towards? What's that vision that you're casting? We talked about this in our discussion yesterday or last week, sorry, off camera. And so often we are in our goal training, and I've done it. Okay. So I probably need to record, reestablish, rerun, relaunch my goal workshop, goals, visions, affirmations workshop. Um, because there's this idea of so many goal setting things tell us, okay, to get to this, which is only one piece of the vision, by the way, whether it's an income goal or a quantity goal or a quality goal, um, a vacation or a house or whatever it is, that's only one piece of the vision. And yet, I feel like all the training that I've had on goals and goal setting, it makes it sound like this this one thing gets you to that, but it's only a piece of the vision. It's not the whole thing. And yet we treat it like it's the whole thing. Like that's my goal. Tell me I'm wrong. You can tell me I'm wrong. Okay. So I go to this idea of stepping stones. This is kind of where I'll wrap up. This is a little longer than I expected it to be, but that's okay. um, so if you look at one goal and the stepping stones to get to that one thing, the one piece of the overall vision, and then now you have another one because that's to the other piece of the vision. I think it goes to those stones, they aren't necessarily in order in real life. And that's the part I feel like even I have been hung up on because you have so many options, because you're maybe letting your heart follow or lead, I should say. But there's a beauty in that flow, knowing that, okay, that's the direction I'm heading, right? That's the vision I'm casting. That's the affirmation I'm focusing on, the prayer I'm asking, whatever it might be. But the how of getting there doesn't matter as much as the actual doing. So one word I've used to describe this recent journey of mine in understanding this is um, slow, organic action. So those daily non-negotiables might be just to keep up on the follow-ups and follow-throughs. It's also going to be drinking enough water. Might be sending a card, acting on a prompting. But then the other things, I think it's the doing that matters more, that's rewarded more than doing it in order. That's the conclusion I've come to recently. I think there's more growth to happen in that for me, and I hope for you as well in hearing that and understanding that it doesn't have to happen in order. I've said it here before, there are no rules. It's a really empowering thing. But I encourage you to make rules for yourself, your own rules in your own language, just like your affirmations. Because when we're in the middle of something, we still need boundaries. We still need policies and procedures. When we set ourselves up for success, It's not saying chaos isn't allowed here because chaos does what it wants, but it's saying, no, I've set this up A, B, and C. Chaos can take a seat and wait, or take a number, or whatever it might be. Um, I keep thinking about when I talk about setting up yourself for success and then the daily non-negotiables. I just think about like my stay-at-home mom duties and like sending my husband off to work. And there are things I do before bed so that my morning is not chaos. Like we can do that on so many levels and so many areas of life and business and mindset. And why not do it with our vision? As we're working towards that, as we are focusing towards that broader vision, not just that one piece of a vision called a goal, when we can, yeah, there's just more autonomy by understanding that it's about the vision and the goal comes secondary because the goal is only a piece of the vision. Action is rewarded. We're going to go into our discussion now. I think there's a lot, there's a piece in there for every one of you. And I'm just curious what it is for you. You're in the middle of something. I'm curious what that is. What is in your midst? What are you in a midst of? It's funny, I chose that word and I see it all the time now because what you focus on is what you bring about. So I'm curious what it is that you're bringing about. Where can we refocus it? Where can we help you as sisters in this sisterhood? It's exciting because we're all doing something and it's exciting. So with that, I will talk to you soon. And of course, going into our live discussion.